Hello guys, welcome to Java Video Tutorials. This is a lesson on writing methods inside of classes. And in case you don't know what a method is, well, it's kind of like another name for a function. Generally speaking, everything in Java is technically a method because everything is inside of a class. But methods are functions inside of a class, and so you can call methods on objects and just make them super dynamic and awesome. We're going to create a simple class called ice cream. So we're going to model like a real life ice cream cone in code. And so what are some of the properties of ice cream? Maybe we want to know if the ice cream is melted or not. So that's kind of like a Boolean variable. So Boolean is melted, and maybe string flavor. String is of course capitalized. Maybe double cost, if you want to buy it at an ice cream shop. Anything else? Let's we might come back to this later. Now let's build our constructor. So public ice cream, and we'll just give it all three of those. So let's give it a flavor first, F, and then cost, double cost, and then we'll just say I. And we can just set those up. So is melted, or I like to say this dot is melted equals I, and this dot flavor equals F, and this dot cost equals C. So now we have our constructor, and we can build an ice cream cone. So if we hit F5, now we can use the interactions pane to say ice cream x equals new ice cream, give it chocolate, and say it was $4.95, and no, false. It's not melted yet. So now we have our ice cream there, and of course we can say this or x dot flavor and get back some of those properties. Let's go ahead and make these private. And this is a good practice. Most of your fields are going to be private, and you're going to write getters and setters, and I'll show you what those are. So create private, and now if we compile this again, I'll just show you. Go back to the interactions pane and create that ice cream again. Now if we say x dot flavor, oh dear. Okay, apparently Dr. Java allows you to access private members from inside the interactions pane, but if we just go create a simple tester, and we created a tester class and gave it a main method and just gave it created a new ice cream, and then say we want to access the flavor, this won't even compile. It says that flavor has private access. So we can't do that. Of course, if I were to say public, then that would compile just fine. But the good practice is to make your field variables, these aren't called field variables, there's so many different names for these. I just call them properties. There's differences between properties and class variables. Call them instance variables. There we go. You want to make your instance variables private. And so of course this won't compile now. So let's comment that out and just keep working. And we'll come back to that. So I talked about getters and setters. So the thing we want to do is write a method that goes and accesses these three methods that access these three variables. So let's go to here and just say public, because we want to be able to run this method from outside of this class. So public, and we want to get a Boolean is melted, and it's a method, so we need to say return is melted. And of course I like to say this dot is melted. Either way will work. So let's create three of those and just change them variable and change this to flavor. And a lot of times you'll see like get is melted like that. I'm just going to leave it like is melted and flavor instead of get flavor or get cost. And just change this. Alright, so inside of this class I have access to everything, even the private variables. So what I can do if I want to access this private variable from outside the class is create a public function that it's kind of like a pass-through. So let's go back here and say x.flavor and then save that, and now you'll see I get a successful compilation, and I can Java, oops. There we go, and you'll see it prints out that chocolate. And now you'll kind of see the benefit of this, because what if we want to be able to only read these values and not write to them? Well, since these are private values, and we've created functions that only get those values, then we cannot overwrite that value. So if I were to try to do something like x.flavor equals vanilla, then that would of course generate another one of those errors. So now we have a read-only instance variable. Let's go ahead and write some setters now. So I'm going to copy these three over, and let's change these to set methods. So setters don't actually return anything, so they're all going to be void. And I'm going to prefix the method names with set. And instead of returning, because we have void, we can't return anything, I'm going to say this. We need to take in the parameters. So this is it's like boolean m, string f, double c. And now we can say equals m equals f equals c. And now we have full read-write access to these variables through these sort of proxies here. They will do all the changing for us, and when they're done with the changing, they will just either return or I'm not saying this very well. The getter methods will just grab these values and return them. The setter methods will take values and then set them to these. So right now this has no benefit over making these all public, except I have more flexibility in these methods. So say that here's a good example. So let's create a way to set the melted status of our ice cream, and we already have that here, but let's say once it's melted we want to print out a message. So we say system out print line, oh darn, this ice cream is no longer yummy. And now every time we set this melted status, we're going to force the user to generate this output. Of course, this code could do anything else. Maybe you want to, it wouldn't work for melted, but now let's go to set cost, right? Let's go to cost and say if cost is greater than $10, then system out print line, say Jew crazy, and then otherwise they can set the cost. So now this kind of forces the user of this class to never set a cost that is greater than $10, right? So if that's the case, you might want to do it also in the constructors. So say if C is greater than 10, we'll say throw new argument exception. Too crazy, right? I think that'll compile. Oh, it's not argument exception. It's called hold on. It's called illegal argument exception. And so there we go. And now go back to our tester. Let's try to create one that's $12. Now we run that code and we get this illegal argument exception Jew crazy. Let's turn this back down to $5 and then say x.set cost and say $12, and then we'll say system.out.println x.cost. So what do you expect here? It's going to create a $5 ice cream. It's going to set it to 12, and then it's going to print out the cost. But of course, if we compile that and run it, the cost is 12. What did I do here? Okay, I just had a stupid moment here. So if we go back to ice cream, and you'll see that this is supposed to be C, not cost. So there we go, compile that, and now we should get that Jew crazy, and it's still $5 because it wouldn't let us set it. So when we create our own getters and setters, that basically gives us more control over what happens when the user tries to set or get these values. And indirectly, I know the topic of this lesson is supposed to be methods or functions inside of classes, but indirectly we've learned about getters and setters as well as writing these methods. So you can see how I called them. I just used the name of the object, the pointer to the object, and then used the dot, which is the dereference operator, and then the name of that method. You'll notice all these are public, right? So public methods can be accessed from anywhere. Private methods can only be accessed within inside the class. So let's create a private method and say private void display message. And that's just going to say system out. Actually, that's going to copy this here. So instead of displaying it there, I'm just going to say this dot display message, and so that's fine. It's a private function, but we're calling it within inside the class, so that works. But if I were to try and call it from here, say x dot display message, that's going to cause a compilation error. Has private access, right? There's a third access modifier that we can use called protected. Protected is kind of in between private and public. That allows the current class as well as any descendant or child classes to access the method. But we haven't gotten into inheritance yet, so I won't show that just now. But that is the basic idea of writing methods inside of your classes. So we've done everything. We've seen return values, we've seen parameters, we've seen access modifiers, we've seen getters and setters. So I think that's good for now, and there goes my phone. So